On the 11th of November 2025. I'm going to whiz through the agenda because there's quite a lot to cover this evening. So, Louise, have we got any apologies?
I have. I've got apologies from Councillor Hubbox and the bid manager.
Mark, lovely, thank you. Any interest to receive declarations? Nope. Just to check that everyone has read the minutes from the last meeting on the 7th of October and to just check that they're okay. Has anybody got any points they want to raise from that? No? Can we, shall we propose, I'll propose that those are all present and correct. Have I got a seconder? Thank you. Thank you. Justine, I can't remember your surname. Taylor. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Okay. Matters arising. Anything that we need to discuss from the minutes? No, we've just said that. No, that's all good. Okay. Open session for electors of New Quay. Have we got any written?
No written
no.
questions. No.
We do have someone in the gallery, and there was an email sent to me in advance to say that you would be joining us this evening. So would you like to? You want to come and sit out the chair and talk into the microphone? Have you got? You want to share your issue?
So I'm only here for one topic. My name's David Heaney. Oh, right, sorry. I'm here representing the Pentire Residents Association. So I'm here interested in the topic on the CCTV.
Okay, thank you. Have you got anything that you want to raise at this point, or are you just here
Well, we submitted a proposal, which you should have, and that was supported by a police letter.
Right, okay, yeah. So what I think we will do is we will bump up the CCTV manager's report. Unfortunately, Charity isn't here this evening because she's not very well. So Louise was going to take us through that. So I propose that we move that from number 9 up in front of the budget setting. So from 9 to now, if that's okay with everyone. I'll propose that. Can I have a seconder? Thank you. All those in favour? Lovely. Louise, are you happy to share the CCTV manager's report?
Yeah, of course. So Charity, in your packs you have a copy of the letter from the police supporting the camera. So Charity has now received a quotation for the permanent CCTV solution on Esplanade Road, just in anticipation of a formal request. The cost of that is quite large, over £21,000, and that's excluding VAT. So it's not that she's, more than happy to look into it, but it is going to have to be something that's going to be looked at where the money's going to come from. It's going to come from an EMR or something like that. So she has got a recommendation which she wanted to put forward. So at this time, she would like the councillors to decide and discuss if they would be happy to support and agree in principle the installation of a permanent CCTV camera at Esplanade Road, given the additional benefits and cover this would provide to the CCTV service. Just given the cost, she would like to investigate the possibilities of external funding and report back to the committee prior to any final commitment on budget towards that camera.
Okay. Has anybody got anything that they want to ask about that or add to? Any thoughts? Councillor Kenny.
Yeah, thank you for moving this up the agenda, because it's the only agenda item I wanted to listen to anyway. Yeah, I mean, the camera was put in on a temporary basis because Esplanade Road was really suffering from antisocial behaviour. I don't know, you might have read in the press about where there was, well, it wasn't vigilante, but what is happening is, although we have very strict parking rules there, more strict than I would like them to be, we still have van lifers down there, and sadly some of them are extremely antisocial. The only way we could control this is by having a very, I admit, a clunky a sort of parking order, TRO, that actually prevents vans parking overnight, and it's really unfortunate that it hits surf as it comes in the morning. We just have not found a solution otherwise. This is the only thing that works. The team from enforcement were really good. They were coming around early. Regrettably, and it's a terrible comment about our society, but at least one of them we think was attacked. We're not sure whether the enforcement officer was actually in Esplanade Road, but he was on his route. He was so badly attacked that he just didn't know where, he couldn't remember where he had been attacked. And as a result, the enforcement team, which is really quite limited, were having to go round in twos, and that is absolutely dreadful. The camera helps. The camera being there and watching what people are doing, it really does help. And I'm afraid, and it's very, I mean, David would be in the first place to tell you that Pentar is the most law-abiding of places, but it's just that we need this extra control there, and I appreciate it's expensive. But what it might be able to do, though, is the temporary one is stuck on top of the lamppost. You can hardly see it. There is no signage because it's temporary. There's no signage to say that it's that you are being watched, basically, and there should be. I think it's a bit limited in its focus. Whereas if we had it there, it's sort of on the last lamppost to Esplanade Road, if you don't, and it can actually swing right across the beach to Town Headland, where, as you know, I know there is a camera there already, but it just provides that extra security over Fistral Beach. So I've just come in to say, you know, the police want it, the Pentar Residents Association want it. I think it's absolutely necessary, and if we can find the funding for it, all the best. But in principle, if you could support it, because I think this is what Charity is saying at the moment, is that if you would approve it in principle, and then we'll see what funding we can find.
Just to back that up, within a report, she did say that she does believe a camera in this location would be really helpful and beneficial, just because it does give them a different angle, and they would get a brilliant view of Fistral Beach, which they don't currently have. She has looked at another mobile camera, but actually there are many limitations to that, and they don't have quite the same link-ups as they do with a permanent camera.
I think that the issue with the permanent camera that is the kind of the added cost is the transmitters, isn't it, that they need in order to link across to the main system, and the additional cost in man-time as well. So I do know. Councillor Creek.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Kenny. Fully recognise that this would be really beneficial on Esplanade. There was a couple of things I wanted to say on it. One was, I suppose I've been a little uncomfortable with some of the communication that's been out around what has been called van lifers. I think what we shouldn't be doing is we shouldn't be kind of essentially penalising these people who through no fault of their own and largely societal pressure find themselves in a situation where, you know, if they want to live in Newquay because of the high cost of living here, they're having to live in vans through necessity. So I think let's just take that with some sensitivity, and you know, I'm really keen to try and work with van dwellers, you know, to make sure that they're as safe as any other member of our wonderful community here in Newquay. So very supportive of the principle of the camera, and the council obviously footing the ongoing personnel costs. It looks like it's in the thing. I think £21,500 is a big ask at a time when budgets are really are up against it. So I think if I were on this committee, which of course I'm not, so I don't get to vote, but I think if I were, I'd be happy to support the recommendation, but I do think you need to find some funding externally to support that. Do we not have any other cameras down that end of Newquay, Louise? No.
No.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's where I would stand. But I just really ask for some sensitivity when we're talking about people that have been forced into living in vehicles because they can't afford housing.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Creek. Councillor Jacobs.
Yeah, I think I would echo Drew's comments entirely. And I desperately think that we need to tackle some of the antisocial behaviour, particularly that's happened in the summer months, not just on the road itself, but also in the sand dunes. And I think there's problems with like, you know, sort of young people, fires. It felt at points during the summer that it was getting a little bit out of hand, and actually some of the antisocial behaviour, you know, to say that van lifers, people who stay in vans, are the problem with the antisocial behaviour in that area would be quite unfair, because I think a lot of it, you know, or at least some of it that I witnessed, wasn't happening from people who were living in vans. It was happening through young people using that kind of place as, I guess, their summer hangout, which leads us to much bigger issues around youth provision in Newquay and Pentyre, and what do young people have to do during the summer. So we need both. I guess this is a proposal that is sort of tackling crime from what's the opposite of prevention? The words escape me. But we need tough on crime, tough on the causes of crime. I feel is needed in Pentyre, and so I'd be keen for us as a committee to think about the youth provision, and then the also thing on the van, on kind of people and van dwellers. Newquay is the surf capital of the UK. I've, as a surfer, visited, and a van driver, camper van owner, have visited various parts of the UK, and I think that we are getting to a place where we're saying kind of no to people who come and stay in vans. Like, that's what it feels like to a lot of people who are kind of that part of that surf community. And I think that's also a problem, because, and again, I'll sort of, even throughout Europe, and they've got a very different approach basically to how people stay in vans and come to places like this, and it's not always very expensive campsites that cost £40 a night. Other parts of Cornwall have got interesting solutions on that. So I think that a three-pronged approach of this, definitely, youth crime and youth prevention needs to be looked at, and then also as a committee and over the next few years, we also need to be thinking about what kind of provision can and is it possible for Newquay to still be a welcoming place for people who use vans, and then just as a kind of one of the things that has impacted the people who want to come and use Fistral Beach during the day and have a van is that because they now can't come till after 9 o'clock, that is restricting some people, and the timing of that. If you're sleeping in a van, there's a certain time when you know that you can consider yourself an early riser and someone who's stayed there throughout the night, and I don't think 9 o'clock is the time. So I would also like to go on record that potentially something a little bit less earlier than 9 o'clock is the time that your overnight provision should be prevented. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Jacobs. Anybody else got any thoughts on this? Councillor Kenny.
I'm back in again. I think there is some good news. I'm not sure how much I am actually allowed to say and how public it is, but after years of saying to Cornwall Council, you should be providing accommodation for van dwellers in one of your car parks, I understand that is actively being pursued. I agree with you entirely about the comments on most van lifers are perfectly respectable. Unfortunately, one or two are not, and there are people outside. I mean, the amazing thing is when we got all that graffiti done, not one of the cameras actually caught someone coming out with a pot of paint and doing it. How that happened, I have no idea, but they obviously were quite canny with the way the cameras worked. So there will be some, it won't be in a residential road like Esplanade Road, but there will be, I understand, that we are going to say, we're not saying we're going to be like the French ones with showers and things on. We will be saying you've got to be self-contained. And if you've got to take everything away with you. And for a small child, you'll be able to stay overnight. And I think that is really, really good news. The reason for the 9 o'clock start is purely about enforcement. The teams, well, when they did have someone who loved going around at 4 o'clock in the morning, he was the one who was attacked. The reason it was 9 o'clock was in fact so it fits in with the because if you don't have someone to enforce, it's a waste of time. You can have all the rules you like, but there's I was at a meeting with the enforcement leader and David, and I sort of said, well, how about making it an hour earlier? And David will say, oh gosh, no, that's not going to work. I agree. I would love to see that time come forward, but unfortunately, it just doesn't fit in with the timetable and the way the civil enforcement officers work. I will still keep at it because, effectively, I agree with you. I think you're right. It should be earlier, but it just prevents them enforcing, and that's why it's that time.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Kenny. Okay. So in terms of coming back to the proposal for the CCTV manager to pursue this and to look for external funding, are we happy to support that as a committee? If I propose it, do I have a seconder? Councillor Jacobs, all those in favour? Lovely, thank you. Thanks, Louise. Yes, I don't know. Is that okay? I'm sorry. Councillor Kenny, do you want to stay for budgets, or are you happy to?
I should. No, I do.
You're going to go. All right. Okie dokie. Okay, I'll let you go, and then we'll hand over to our lovely RFO.
So we have a number of documents for you to go through. Some of them are just year-to-date documents, which you normally have as part of your budget. So the first document that you have is feedback from the GNR committee, which met at the end of October on the proposed budget that was given to them. There was a number of questions or things highlighted and requested that this committee consider, and there is a following document where Amy has responded because the majority of the information was around the events, and there is a response to that as well. So that might be worth going through her response. I was just wondering which one it was. Is it the next one? No. Is it under number 11? Yeah. Okay, so it might be worth doing that one.
So the event budget report, do you want to bump that up?
Yeah. Is that okay? It just answers a lot of the questions that were raised. So if we can just look at those.
I propose that we'll bump item 11A. No, just 11. Item 11, we'll bump that up to 29. I'll propose, but I'll seconder. Councillor Williams, all in favour?
Yep, so during the GNR there was a number of questions raised about what was included within certain figures, and this is the document. It's called Events Budget Report, and then it has today's date, which answers some of those questions. So the first one on here was the security, and Amy can speak if she wishes, but it just details the events and the numbers that are required. Then you have the first aid requirements, which again explains the need and the events that will be covered. Then there is another section around the Halloween zombie crawl and the funding for that. And then there was a £1,500 community engagement events / projects budget. I don't know if Amy wants to mention anything on those budgets.
Yeah, when we put in the Halloween one, We put in the Halloween one, but I think from the working party meeting, we kind of decided that we could help Mark get the funding out his way, so we can cut that one out, wasn't it? Because we'd really like to push through the security and medical money more.
Okay, so there was that, so that's an option for you. And then the only other, which was a committee decision, if I go back to that top report in the budgets, was around grant funding. It was requested that C&T consider that the grants funding figure be reduced back to 5,000 as in previous years, given it's already double what other committees have, and they really want committees to try to keep the budget down as much as possible, and that there is the reintroduction of the 250 per councillor community grant, community chest grant funding. So there was another outlet there for each member to give grants, and that was one of the requests. So I suppose they're the main things for this committee to consider, as well as anything else that's within that budget, which we've got details of that you might wish to look at. I don't know if you want to go through those main things first.
Yeah, shall we?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go through those.
So the first one being the grants. I think the key feeling that came back from GNR was that the events budget as a whole had doubled a couple of years ago in terms of being committed to doing events, and that, you know, they wanted to look at that but say actually putting another big increase on for events felt excessive. That's probably not the right word, but you know, I'm trying to make it sound as best as I can, in that there was going to be an increase, and we needed an increase around Martin's Law and the requirements we need for security guards and such, and that we should focus on that and not the extension of the zombie call Halloween event, which Amy has said the working party is in support of. So there's £4,000 which could be taken out of the budget at this point. But then the committee's decision is around the grants. It was requested to increase it to 6,250, and the request has come back to say, would you reconsider it down to 5,000?
Councillor Davies, Councillor Cook.
Yeah, I think for those who were in that meeting, we felt that particularly with, I guess, where we're at in terms of public perception, but also that we are the Community and Tourism Committee. So it is a lot of the role of the engagement with communities, supporting communities during a time where, you know, we only have to sort of look local news, national news, what's happening in our communities, and the removal of funds that would have been there provided by Cornwall Council historically, that it is these very small projects that if we can fund them better and in a way that engages better with our communities and giving them more of a say on the things that happen, that actually that's the one area of our budget that should really be increasing and not decreasing. It's been the same for quite a long time, and we're quite excited about using our grant funding to be able to potentially seed some of these projects, even look at like thematic ways that we bring new people to the table. So we talked about women's issues and women's projects and women's days. We sort of said that let's use that to really, I guess, steer the direction of travel in terms of how we want to serve our communities. If there is going to be any precept increase, to be able to say one of the reasons we're doing that is because we want to increase the money that we give to our communities. It's also it also shows a really good kind of way. How can I say this in a way that's it shows that we're putting our communities first, and that yes, we may be having to increase budgets for different things, but what we are going to continue to do and do more of is this part of the work. So that's why we felt that very small increase is a win for both our communities and perception of the council.
Thanks, Chair. So I thought I'd probably come in, given I was probably one of the loudest in the room at GNR, which is often the case, isn't it? I'm the loudest in the room. around the grants issue, and I think for context, I think it's really important to understand the wider context. Firstly, as the CFO has already highlighted, and I think Liz and I were the two people in the room that really pushed, after many, many, many years of underfunding of community and tourism, to double this committee's budget 2 years ago. And that wasn't just a few thousand, but I think that was about a £90,000 increase in our budget in 1 year. So you now have best part of £200,000 because of that piece of work that we did 2 years ago. And I think that shows in the wonderful work that we've been doing with events and other areas. So I think it's good for context. I think the other thing for context is that I believe we also introduced, as well as the tourism grant, which currently sits at £5,000 and has done for a couple of years, you're quite right, Councillor Jacobs, a youth grant, which also sits at £5,000, and I note neither of which this year have been spent yet. A grant yet, but we are halfway through the year. I don't think we've spent any of the youth grant, which is £5,000. Your total committee's grant pot is 4 times that of ENF, which has a budget is 2.5 times that of C&T. So, comparatively speaking, the grant pots on this committee are quite high. Overall, and I think we should take an overall view of the council's grant pots, GNR, we're increasing £5,000 next year to reintroduce the community councillor chest, which was removed from the budget by the previous administration a couple of years ago. So as a council, we are increasing the amount of money available to our general public in grants. The other thing that I think is really important for context here is it doesn't always have to be about giving money out. We, again, I know Councillor Wright and Councillor Williamson and I were all very keen to bring back the communications officer a couple of years ago. This is a key part of the strategy for the town council and goes to support organisations outside of the town council. And the other key change was that the introduction of a grants officer at Newquay Town Council, whilst primarily that grants officer's role is to find funding for projects that the town council wishes to deliver, its secondary role, and one that has been very active under Kieran in the last year, is to support local organisations to find grant pots and help them fill out the paperwork to deliver that. And I know that Kieran's been doing that work. So in summary, I think whilst I understand what you're saying, and it would be lovely to keep increasing everything, I think for this year, knowing what we know about some of the other commitments that we've made as a council, it isn't the right time to further increase that grant pot, given everything I've just said.
Thank you, Councillor Creek. Can I ask, and I possibly should know this, but I know that we have the general grants pot that we actively promote, and we've split that into 2 application windows throughout the year. That's a separate pot to the youth and the community pot, or are they all part of the same pot? Just yeah.
So, and the CFO will jump in here if I start talking absolute rubbish, which is there's every chance, right? So previously you used to be able to apply for grants throughout the year. What we found was that organisations would apply early in the year for large sums of money, and because they were the first person to do that, they tended to get that money, and then anyone else that came by later in the year fell by the wayside and didn't get any money. So to try and make it fairer, we introduced this 2-window system, one in May and one in the autumn, I think, to try and even the balance and give everyone a fair shot. And I think broadly that's worked reasonably well. It has had some tricky bits, and I don't love the window between the autumn and then the May. I think that feels too long, because we've got 2 kind of close together, haven't we? And then we have a long gap. Right? It's a long winter, isn't it? If you're looking for funding. So there's that. I think the youth and the community grant for this committee can be both used through that grant gateway, can't they? But you can also allocate the youth grant to projects that this committee decides are important enough and worthwhile enough within the ring fence of being something to do with youth that they can, so there you go.
So, Anne, sorry, could you just clarify how much we have in grants to give out across each of the committees, just for information?
There is £5,000 in GNR, there is £2,500 in ENF, and there is £5,000 which is specifically highlighted as grants in C&T.
Okay.
There is the additional £5,000 for the youth, but that's not specific to a grant funding.
No,
so if there
that's where it
was
differs.
a piece of equipment that you wanted to pay for that you could look at, but it would still be looked at through this committee and it would be a committee decision.
Yeah.
So that's how much your 12.5.
Okay. So I just wanted to check. I don't think we do a huge amount of promotion of that youth budget, because I know that it was in the C&T budget for years, then it was taken out because it was never used, because no one talked about it. I know we've brought it back, but I don't know if we've done a huge amount of talking about it, because there's lots of youth organisations that could benefit from that, but I don't think we've done a huge amount of shouting and saying, it's here, come and talk to us.
I think I may have a slightly different view to Drew on terms of the grant funding application process and there being two gateways. I do understand that it really did get big grant applications in the beginning, but now we're in a position with C&T where you've got over £2,500 left and both of your windows have closed. So, you know, there are some works that need to be done around that. Kieran has been very active on that and looking at proposing new ways of working forward with that going forward.
Great.
So I'm hoping before the next budget's, well, the new year, if you like, we'll have some more suggestions about how that might work better, because like I said, there has been feedback that the committee has not met when they should have done.
I completely agree with that.
We really want to make sure that people can actually access the funding that we've got available for people, and we will include that youth budget, which will be specifically for youth groups,
activity,
if you like, although it could be used internally. So we're hoping to really give that a bit of an overhaul before April, but at the moment it was just around that and the increase.
Yeah, okay, lovely. I'd like to explore that as well with Kieran and how we can do that. So with just on a side note, with the underspend from the grants, would we be open to people writing to us now with proposals, or is that it's closed, it's done, or what's the...
So officially within the grants policy, it's closed.
Okay.
And there has been times where committee has gone back and recommended different supporting different groups. That's happened in the past with GNR underspends. But I think that it would be useful to maybe open another window for committee to consider, given there is an underspend. And this is something that I'm really keen on, because we have, I believe, this year really promoted that grants.
The general grants we definitely have.
We definitely have done that, and there still hasn't been a massive uptake for it. And this extra 25% that you're asking for this year is that grant pot fund. So I feel, you know, there is an element there. We haven't even spent half, you know, we've got over half of it left, that we could look at keeping it lower next year but increasing it. And I think maybe but it's obviously a committee decision.
Thanks, Anne. Councillor Jacobs.
We had quite a lively conversation about it at the last meeting, and what we talked about was things. I think we'd also mentioned sort of participatory budgeting, and do we invite communities to shape where some of that funding goes to, so as opposed to them just coming back to committee, like how do we start to really be a committee that engages not just the public through them being able to ask a question and not reply to a question, and that's our engagement with the public, but we could really start to shape what and how we make decisions. And so having potentially even some funding that we can do through more innovative ways of distribution would be really exciting. We talked about that, and we talked about potentially having a meeting that wasn't a formal C&T meeting, but a kind of strategy meeting of what that looks like. And so having some additional money, albeit not that much, we didn't want to be locked into, we have all these new ideas for how we give money to our communities, but we don't have the extra money to be able to do it if we start to sort of open the floodgates, as it were, and the town council is seen as a place that will support you. But on the flip side of that, in the last year, some of our funding had to go to things like, I believe that like when people come and ask for, say, use the Killer Court, that we may, like for the Newquay Town, the Newquay Food Festival, did we have to use some of our budget to cover things like that? Because if we knew we could have assets that could be, I guess, gifted in kind to the use of our communities and them not come out of our pot, then that would be another way forward that we can support. For instance, there's been a question about the Skate GB next year and them coming back, and you know, we've got this amazing skate park, but if a skate community wanted to book it for us for a night and then we have to use that from our pot, then we suddenly reduce what we can do with other things. So I guess there's two things. It's like we wanted a little bit of extra to not be bound by what we've had, to be able to be more creative, more innovative, engage our communities, and we also, I guess on top of that, how do we have more access to the facilities that the town council has to support our communities in different ways other than just through money.
You, Councillor Jacobs. Councillor Creek.
Yeah, just very quickly, two things just to answer Councillor Jacobs. 2 points there. I think one on the in-kind. I think we already do some of that, don't we, with bid particularly, and the shop small markets. We haven't charged them historically at all for so much to our own financial pain, actually, for any of those uses of the Killer Court. And that's cost us a chunk of money, equivalent to that you've probably spent in grants this year. And two, so very much open to that. Two is around the involving the public. So 2 points on that. One is, I know Councillor Hubbocks and I are really keen and have started the journey along exploring what citizens' assemblies might look like in Newquay in a similar way to they do in Falmouth and other parts of the UK, and really keen, and we're meeting with someone who actually runs the citizens' assemblies in Falmouth imminently, really keen to bring that into the fold. I think that's sort of what you were trying to describe, although slightly different because you were going to give them money to spend, right? I think we were coming at it from an angle of engagement around budgets and other decisions that we might be making, but I think it's a natural progression. And the other point on that, which I've forgotten, no, it's gone.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So, Anne, what was your original question?
Sorry, apologies. I think my point was you said, Councillor Jacobs, that you would like the money essentially there when you get that far. I think my recommendation would be get that far and then you can have the money, rather than just having a just-in-case pot of money, knowing how long these things sometimes take to come from idea through to policy, through GNR, through full council and bits and pieces. Actually, I suspect we could well be into budget setting next year before that happened. And so that would be my recommendation, is not start to budget for money that we haven't yet got the ability to spend.
Councillor Jacobs. And then we'll come back to Anne.
So can I interpret that if we are having a really successful new funding strategy where lots of our communities are coming forward, and by mid next year, because obviously we're in November 2024, if our increase in that extra £1,200, it doesn't come in until May 2027, could there be a kind of break point where we're engaging more communities and we're getting lots of more people, so we could come back to GNR and say we need to top up our budgets? Because obviously it doesn't sound like we could, so it's either now, November 2025, sorry, to enable us to have that 25 to 26. If we don't sort it now, then it's not till the 27, which feels like a long time away, given my confidence in the committee and the council as a whole, in that things are changing and they're changing quite quickly. So it's about, and if we don't spend it, be taken back. But it feels at the moment that it's a long way to say, well, this may not work, so you can't have it. Can we not do it the other way around?
Anne, I'm sorry, that feels like that might be a you question.
No, it's absolutely fine. I suppose the first thing I'd say is it seems I don't mind doing whatever you want as a committee. You have to argue the increase at the end of the day. I think that the GNR meeting that I sat through was actually really supportive, and there was only a couple of things that they asked each committee to review. And in terms of past committees where they've said to cut your budget by 30 grand, the things that they're asking aren't huge. So I think that's worth saying. In terms of time periods and things moving, the grant pots haven't been used for the last few years, and I think that is also worth noting. I think it is about communication, and we have really pushed those grant pots, not the youth one, but the other ones through the new comms in the last 12 months, and we still haven't had the take-up that we needed. It is a 25% rise, which is quite steep, even though it's £1,200, it's not a huge amount of money, but when you're looking at percentages in terms of what committee, based on, there is that element as well. And I realise that April 27 is a long way away, but there is a grant pot within GNR that has been spent by ENF and C&T when they do want to use additional funding. So there is a grant pot there available for an EMR release.
Yeah, so I think as we have an underspend this year, then we probably just need to go with your proposal. And I think in terms of grants for next year, I think in order to kind of start the conversation with some of the things that Councillor Jacobs is saying and some of the things that Councillor Creek and Councillor Hubbard are doing, when we release the grant again next year, I think we have to open the doors and ask people to come in and talk to us about what they need. And then when we get to the end of next year and we're massively oversubscribed, then we've got a really good argument for saying, actually, we did things differently next year. We talked to our community about the grant process. We walked them through it. I know the application's quite straightforward, but that's still overwhelming for some people and some small organisations. So I think we could start this process that you're talking about and actually do things in a different way so that we can open the doors to people to come and look at the grants, and then when we are really oversubscribed, we've got an argument for changing the budgets. I'll come to Anne, then I'll come to Councillor Martin.
May I make a suggestion that might be sort of a halfway house? If there is an underspend at the end of the year, normally any underspend goes into a general fund, which is how this works. Mm-hmm. If you were to make a recommendation that any underspend was to go into the grants EMR under GNR, that C&T had delegated authority to spend that if they get to the end of their budget, that might sort both of the issues in terms of next year. That might work for you.
Councillor Martin.
I think that's just answered what my query was in terms of flexibility. And if I was just thinking about the Citizens' Assembly, for example, that might, no, this is a question, would that be financed out of a grant, or actually somewhere in the machinations of your brain, Anne, that there's money there somewhere that could be used for that? And I probably shouldn't say this, please don't minute it, but in a way I feel that while we need to be accountable, we also need to be resourceful. And how we, and that flexibility. And so what you've just said in terms of, okay, there's been an underspend, let's recognise that that's happening. And, if we all agree that it's a good idea to use it for X piece of work that we are involved in, not necessarily to hand it over to somebody and say, you use it, but actually we're using it as part of our community engagement action. Is that right, or am I in cloud cuckoo black?
I think that's fair, but the other element to this that we haven't discussed yet, but was something that GNR pulled up, was there's an extra £1,500 in there for community engagement and events. And so for my mind, this could be the little pot of money that if you want to do, you know, there was mention of a women's event and what have you, but if you're interested in community engagement and working through that, that might support it. And a lot of the things, setting up something like that will be officer time, and that's something that hopefully we will have. So that's already costed in the budget. So there is some flexibility, but it's about trying to achieve what you want. And I think if we can earmark the underspend, if there is one, if we're not able to do another round of grants, that could really help you going forward. So that's all I'm making as a suggestion.
Oh, Councillor Williams and then Councillor Jacobs.
Thank you. Really interesting conversations, and obviously, you know, it's difficult times, and trying to figure out how much there is at the back of the sofa is quite hard at times. But it sounds like through conversation and everybody throwing in different ideas and thoughts and stuff, we're kind of getting to a good place. Two things, really. One is, I think the Citizens Assembly approach is a really good one. I think that agenda could be a really interesting one. Can I just ask that it's a pan-council invite and discussion so that we can all get involved, because I think that would be really good. And then this last week I've met with two different organisations, one Your Art Connect.
Youth
now.
Art Connect.
They're changing it to Your Art Connect because they're including dementia groups and other groups in it, not just youth. But I think they would be very interested to hear about this underspend, or the 5k availability for the youth one, as well as many others that I think you referenced. And also I met with the Women's Centre in Bodmin.
Women's Centre, yeah.
As well, who organised the event on the Killer Court, Reclaim the Night, and they could also be interested. So my thought was, could we have, and there might well be, I'm fairly new to this committee, a kind of standing agenda item where we discuss exactly what pots are available, what has gone out, what's been applied for, what hasn't, and maybe Kieran could come and give us an update on how things are going, just because I think finding out things haven't been claimed after the fact is always a bit difficult, whereas if we were here beforehand, I'm sure it is done, but that's just my request.
Yeah, and I like Anne's idea of having another, if we do have an underspend, having another round available for people to do in January. You know, that's a good thing. So, Councillor Jacobs.
Yeah, and I think because the youth and community, I think I don't even know when I became aware of that, and it might be quite recently that we knew there was probably when we started the budgeting, so that there was a 5,000. So the fact that that's definitely something that we can start to think about how we could spend it by April, but that's one that I would definitely want to be able to carry over and still have access to. Again, going back to my comment earlier on in the meeting about youth crime and antisocial behaviour and those preventative measures, and knowing how really diabolical the current youth provision is across the country and Cornwall, I really think we could do some interesting work with that. And so, but again, doing the thinking, doing the strategy, and then getting it out and getting the requests in by April could be more of a challenge. So if we can carry over the C&T grants budget, can we also carry over that youth budget?
Yeah. Councillor Martin, and then we'll go to the proposals and votes and everything that we need to do for that.
Thank you. I think some of, particularly what you were just saying now, I seem to remember that we were saying we would have an informal meeting at some stage about, just buzzing round ideas and what we would like to do and what maybe this year, maybe next year, but and that we really need to try and put that in the diary, relatively early in the new year now, I guess, middle of January or something, if that would be possible for anybody who's interested in, in terms of engaging with officers as well as councillors. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Martin. Okay, so what do we need to propose, Anne?
to agree that any underspend from the grants or the youth fund to go into grants EMR that CMT has delegated authority from GNR to spend in grant applications.
I propose what Anne just said. And Councillor Taylor will second that. All those in favour? Okay. Any abstentions? Or what's the opposite of those in favour? Not in favour. Objections, that's the word. Any objections? Great, I think that everyone voted. I think those were voting. Okay. Thank you, everybody. That was a really useful conversation to have, and it was a nice conversation to have, and no one got cross, and that's good. Right, sorry, my agenda's disappeared. Bear with me a second.
Sorry, we did move the
Did I?
events. Well, we moved events up as well, so I don't know if you want to do that first before we...
Is that everything with budgets now? Is there stuff... Is that everything, Anne? Sorry, just to double check before we move on.
There are EMR movements and balances for your information, and there is the budget working document for you all to view, just in case there was any other amendments that you wished to make. But there were no recommendations from me personally about further reductions.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have anything they want to raise or have any questions about anything else on budgets? Yes.
It's the same that went to last time, but with the yellow bits are the bits that have We did talk through it in quite a lot of detail last time round. The yellow lines are either things that I've made amendments because I've had more information come through, or it was an amendment made at the meeting. So again, it would be to take out the £4,000 for the Halloween event and to reduce the grants back down to 5,000 is what we're talking about.
I do have an annoying question about the Halloween grant, because I wasn't at GNR and I wasn't at the event working party. Why was that requested in the first place? Was it? Yeah, sorry. I just for clarity, whilst everyone's reading budgets, I've got a question.
So we were looking at putting on a Halloween event alongside the zombie crawl.
Okay.
On the Killer Court, so like a little scare maze,
Okay.
and hatch, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So it was something in addition to what
Yeah.
it wasn't subsidising what they'd do or anything like that.
But
It was
then
in
I
addition.
think
Okay.
it was brought up at the meeting, the GNR one, that bid won't have the funding from Experience Nuki.
Yeah.
So this could also cover it, but I think that we could find funding elsewhere.
Okay.
Shall I just so one of the things that we discussed in the event working party, I think Amy and I certainly had the conversation, was that some of the cost to bid, for which they're using their Experience Nuki money, some of that was bore by Nuki Town Council charging for certain things as well.
Okay.
So like the truck, I think was this you and I conversation, or was this me and someone else's conversation? I had a conversation with someone, and apparently there's cost to us giving them essentially Joe in a truck. Do you know anything about this?
And stuff.
Well, that's what I was told. So what I essentially was saying at the time was, sorry, Amy, I swear that was you. I was having the conversation with myself. It's possible.
This was after the zombie.
Honestly, yeah, it was a good night. But essentially, I think one of the things that we were, and similar to the conversation we were having earlier, is it doesn't always need to be about cash money. It can be about in-kind as well. So there's likely to be some in-kind opportunities that we can offer bid, that bid may wish to offer us in return at other points. So
Thank you. That was super helpful. I just wasn't aware of all of that. Any questions re budgets? Councillor Williamson.
Can I just clarify for the record, this isn't going to impact on the zombie call, though? No.
No.
Absolutely not. Okay, good, because I think, that just gets better and better
This was
year on
just
year.
an extra part of it that we could have done.
Okay,
from a
cool.
town
I just
council
wanted
side.
that clarified for the record. Secondly, sorry to kind of go back maybe a step or two. I'm on the Newquay Town Council website looking at grants, and I feel, so on the homepage at the bottom, there's 5 quick links: support networks, list of defibrillators, Newquay Town Council grants, useful numbers, Newquay organisations, and the one for Newquay Town Council grants link isn't working.
Doesn't work. Is that because it's closed? Yeah.
Okay, that I think ideally needs looked at. But then I'm also looking at the page itself, which is on the quick links at the top, the popular, says Grants Gateway. And then here it says, basically it says all grant applications will be considered against the criteria outlined in the Town Council's grant policy. Please read through the policy. I don't know where the policy is. It's not there. No. Oh, right at the bottom is the grant policy. I just think if we're trying to encourage applications, that page could maybe have a look at to make it look a little bit more interesting.
We are currently in the process of getting a brand new website, so it will look completely different anyway.
Okay.
And friendly.
Yeah. It's not as user-friendly maybe for people who aren't familiar to do them, so that's just my comment.
Thanks, Francis. Any questions about the budget? No? Okay, lovely. We shall move on. And because we move things around, sorry, Joe, Amy, would you like to share your events report, please?
Yeah, so it was just the finalised line-up for the Christmas event. We have more than 2 weeks on Friday. So that's definitely what's happening. And then in the previous meeting, it was asked to find sponsorship for the Christmas tree, forecasted in support to the Christmas tree for £5,000. Also about the late night shopping, Mark Tom Bid is organising the town centre. I was going to the look and we've got a couple of response, so we'll be setting alcohol this weekend as well.
Great. Any questions? Councillor Williamson.
Not a question as such, but I just wanted to say thank you, Amy, for your time last week going through all of the plans and work that you're doing, and for clearly an exceptionally creative Christmas lights switch on that is going to be brilliant. So thank you very, very much.
Yeah, agreed. And also, well done for your involvement with the zombie crawl, because I do feel like it was possibly the best one that we've done so far. I was really sceptical about the change of route and the fact that we were coming all the way from Asda. No, I was like, why are we doing this? This is a terrible idea. And then when we did it, I was like, that was the best thing we've ever done. So yes, well done for just being part of that and having Newquay Town Council's presence and part of that, because it was a really good event. Cool. Thank you. Joe.
Couple of things from me, really, just to say, I mean, people will have seen the comments that have gone out about the TIC relocation. That's happened. They've been in since last week, which is going. It's very quiet, isn't it, at the moment to tourist information? So it's difficult to measure the impact at this stage. But
are they comfortably in? How does it feel in terms of the kind of? I haven't had a chance to. I was away last week, so I haven't had a chance to kind of come in. But does it fit within the library?
Oh, yeah.
Is it the feng shui hasn't been thrown off at all?
No. I mean, I think summer's going to be interesting.
Okay.
But as you know, during general times, I think it's. I mean, it's part of it looks like it's always been there. So
okay.
That tells you something. And as part of that, just wanted to just get committee's approval for a reprint of the current Visit Newquay guide. So we are able to update that with kind of to make it relevant for 2026. And we just need the go ahead really to get it reprinted. We're suggesting, so that I think I've included the quotes in the report, and we're suggesting at this stage that we go for a 7,000 reprint if that's agreeable to people.
Okay, just finding that. But,
Just for your information, that money's in the budget. It's in there every year. So.
okay, great. Do we need to propose that, vote on it? Yep. So we'll propose that we go for a reprint for the TIC brochure?
The
leaflet?
Visit Newquay
Visit
Guide.
Newquay Guide, sorry, the Visit Newquay Guide. I'll propose, any seconders? Councillor Martin, all those in favour? Lovely.
And then the only other thing, just for the minutes, was the agreement over Christmas opening hours that you and I
agreed over email.
But we just need something for the minutes, which is just the proposal that I've included in there, which is what we've done over the last 2 years, that we have an early finish Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, and we just close on that 27th, which is a notoriously very, very quiet day.
Yeah, and it worked well last year. So that's just for noting. I don't think we need to vote on that. Is that right? We do want to vote. Okay. I'll propose that the Christmas opening, closing hours for the library are, as you can see in there, and I'm happy to propose those. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Jacobs, all those in favour? Lovely. Absolutely.
Several years ago, I remember sat around here and we were talking quite heavily about warm zones.
Warm spaces, yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And the library was a designated warm zone, which is great. And I was just wondering if it remains being a warm zone, how that whole approach is going. And as we head into winter, what the kind of whole, especially now we've kind of merged the TIC in with it, and making sure the library still functions really well as a brilliant library. How will the warm zone aspect of it work too?
It's hard to tell, isn't it, until we really see the impact of like numbers through the door. But I'm not convinced it will have that big an impact, because it's a quiet time for winter time is a notoriously quiet time for TIC, quite a busy time for the library because of the warm space element. And that does get used quite well. We see that certainly getting used by members of our, older members of our community. Mm-hmm. But I think what we've noticed since we started doing it, which is 3 years, is after school activity. Really, we see that go up a lot in the winter. Just keeping kids out of. Well, I suppose it saves you putting the heating on for another 2 hours, doesn't it, by the time you go home, that kind of thing. So we do see that go up a lot. I mean, obviously there's going to be an impact in terms of noise and activity, but we just, it kind of remains to be seen a little bit, really.
It's still kind of, obviously promoted, but is it still made aware to people that it is a warm?
Yeah, I mean, we have done in previous years. We haven't done yet this year. We tend to sort of do it after Christmas and do it during that kind of sort of January, February, March time. And we would still want to absolutely promote that, both as a warm space and a safe space.
That's great. Councillor Jacobs.
I just had a couple of queries. One was about the sort of the signage, and it might have come up at a committee before. But I just wanted to know, is there a budget and what's going to happen with the outside of the building so that people know that, obviously at the moment we've got those A4 printed posters on the sign outside, but I wondered if there's going to be anything at the library site itself. And also, just in terms of the updates of figures, in the report, did we get this historically, and will we also now get included in the library and visitor information service, like information, unless I've missed it and I can't read it properly, which is not, it's not impossible, like numbers of inquiries regarding the tourism side of things, so how is that going to be measured?
I think that might be tricky to separate out the two. I mean, the committee have been quite clear that we want it to be one service, so I think it's going to be quite tricky to be able to separate that out. What I would expect to see Certainly from sort of Easter onwards, I would expect to see quite an increase in the numbers from this time last year. Do you know what I'm not particularly expecting that during winter, but I would expect from sort of between April and say October next year, I would expect to see a substantial percentage increase on the equivalent numbers of the previous year. We can separate out some particular pieces of activity that we do from TIC, things like National Express tickets, wheelchair hire, that kind of thing. I don't think we'll be able to
differentiate the
in any meaningful way be able to differentiate those people who've come in to use library services and those people who are coming to use, because we would sort of expect them to use both in a sense.
Councillor Jacobs, sorry, we'll come back to Councillor Jacobs.
Just a very quick question. I think it may help answer. Do we have data on sort of book borrowing that we can track over time? So to sort of see year on year, month on month, whether there's a trend there, and we can offset that against some of the footfall figures, which will obviously be higher, as you say.
We can get data on book borrowing. I'm not sure it would necessarily tell anybody anything other than how many more books have been borrowed this year. I'd have to think about that. I don't think it would give us anything meaningful.
I mean, so it's what people use the library for, though, because I come into the library quite a lot and I don't borrow books. I come in to colour in and have a nice time, read the newspaper.
And a lot of people borrow books from the library through the reservation system, so they literally come in, get their books and go. So, I don't think...
Not much meaningful there.
Yeah, I think that's just going to have to be anecdotal, I think, over the next 12 months.
It'd be great, though, at the end of, say, October, maybe in the November C&T meeting next year, and actually have a look at the comparison in footfall over the busy period and say, actually, moving the TIC in there has resulted in X amount of increase, because that would be interesting.
Yeah.
I guess my question wasn't quite similar to what Drew said, but in a wider context. I guess the question is how are we measuring value, impact, and outcomes? Like, obviously, it's quite a new setup now. It's how do we know that it's working? How do we know that people, is it providing its core service of people borrowing books? Is it providing its core service of lots of people coming through the doors and asking for advice on where to go? Because I guess that's important for you, as in how do you measure the quality and impact of your service? What measurements do you use with your team? With the how do they know that they're doing the right thing? What are they measuring? What do you performance manage everyone on? And they're the sort of, so we don't necessarily need the numbers each month, but we need to make sure that we're delivering a quality service. So how do we know that? And is that something we need to look at? Is that already in place? So we can say, as representatives of the public, we've seen enough evidence to know we're running a really vibrant, well-used tourism and information and library information service.
We have got at the moment. I mean, I think football actually does tell us a story about people coming to the library. I do think that does tell a story. So I think that is important. We do at the moment have a survey out online because obviously we still fall a part of Cornwall Council Libraries world. So there is a current survey out online at the moment, a customer satisfaction survey, which we've always scored very, very highly in. I would expect I think we would normally get the results from that around December time. So, and I always share it with committee. I suppose the numbers through the door do tell a story, because I think book borrowing is just it's not a small part.
It's part of it. It's not the whole story.
But actually, the library is used for lots of other things other than book borrowing.
And I think at the last meeting, we went through each of the things that the TIC provided, and then we chose collectively which ones we were going to hand over, and which ones were going to continue, and which ones could either move elsewhere or we could stop doing. So all of those services are still going to continue, and those will be a comparable. Those will have like comparable numbers, won't they? To say actually when it was in the previous building, we had this many people who used the can't actually remember what we said we were going to take over, but the left luggage or the other one that you mentioned, the coach booking, so those will still be a service, and those we can still say at the end of next year that has actually increased or decreased. So then the work for next year will be on what we need to promote that we still do, even though we've moved. It's the service is still there. Councillor Willington.
Also, I'm sure you have thought of this, but what are your plans for using the, I don't know what it's called, the wagon, to take the TIC out into the community as opposed to expecting the community to go to the TIC? You know, the one that we use up at Boardmasters every year. So, could that be used on the Killicourt or over towards Vistral or other places where to basically try to soften the footfall in the library so that library can focus on the stuff like printing, which I use it a lot for. Yeah.
I mean, we certainly use the trailer, have historically always used the trailer at the Killicourt events.
Yes.
And that staffing committee, that will continue. In terms of additional, it's always a staff. I think it's a great idea, and staffing committing it would be something that people would be quite keen to do. That takes away from the core service a little bit potentially, doesn't it? So we would need to see that. I think we would absolutely want to be prioritising the Killicourt events as we have done in the past, and then just sort of maybe play it a little bit by ear while we see how this works over the next 12-month period.
Thank you, Jo.
Can I just come in on that, because there's something else in this pot, is that trailer is at the end of its life, so that's something this committee is going to have to consider very soon. And in terms of changes with regards to the Tourist Information Centre, they do a lot of events, they do a lot of promotion and service of those things. But the TIC is very known for its location, and it's in this building. Like, everybody knows where it is when they visit. It's quite clear, and as long as the signage is and it's clearly redirected, which it is at the moment, I think to move it around too much or in different locations, it becomes, and we've had feedback from the Tourist Information Manager previously, that causes a bit of confusion, and then people don't really know where they're going and what have you. So I think it's a balancing act between events where additional people are going, where we want to promote and be a part of, to being that stable, this is where we are, this is the services we provide, and this is where to find us, because even like people from abroad and everything, they will look where that TIC is going to be because they want it. So it's quite important, I think, and that's the feedback that I've had from the TIC manager when I've suggested things in the past, that it's kept in a permanent location.
Okay, Councillor Jacobs.
Yeah, sorry to, I guess, I don't want to labour the point about the sort of the tourism, the TIC stats and data, but I think one of the fears of the services coming together was that, or one of my fears was that the Tourist Information Service would just be subsumed into library kind of bits of business, and so how do we safeguard and make sure that isn't happening, that we continue to have a vibrant tourism information service if we don't have the data? To me, it's not enough to say that the numbers have increased of people walking through the door, because we don't know if that's because we're seeing more people borrowing books, or there's more activities, or the library's doing a lot more great events, and so therefore the visitor numbers to the library are increasing. I would just like something a little bit more, so I know that hasn't happened, and the tourist information side of things is still, is still being protected and driven forward, and that it's as vibrant as everything else. And I know it's about, well, it's now a joint service, but it's like, how do we know that a tourist information service is still being provided if there's no data that I can look at? But I might be completely on the wrong kind of track with it. So
do you want to come in, or shall I go to Councillor Creek?
My issue is that there's no data. We've got some corporate data, that's all, and then we've got data about activity.
Yeah.
But other than that, we don't really have
Do we have footfall data from the TIC?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I was going to say, we've got a change in staff in that element as well. We're currently advertising a new deputy, I forget the title, but I think if there's feedback from members on the information that they would like to be, think that's something that should be explored with a new person, and look at the data that we have so that you can come up with some meaningful information, but it's not something that we can help you with right now, if that makes sense. Is that fair?
Sounds very reasonable.
Councillor Creech, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So firstly, I just want to thank Jo and her team. I know that this has been a really, let's be honest, quite traumatic period, moving the two services into one. So I want to thank you, for the professionalism and, the resolve that the team and you have shown through that period. And I genuine, Jo, I have huge appreciation for you and the library team. On the point that Councillor Jacobs was making, I think it's a valid point, and I think you're right. We need some sort of form of KPI to track these things, as we should across all services. What that looks like, I think, let's flesh that out. I think if we're looking for a reason why we needed to do this and why this is, I think, is a genuinely good idea, you've only got to look to Visit Cornwall, who obviously went bust within the last 2 months. And look to the TIC budget in terms of income this year. It's on this report that shows a significant reduction in income from membership fees, and it wasn't sustainable in its current form. We need a TIC. We are the big tourist destination of Cornwall, and so we need that facility, and we need to protect that facility. And I, hand on heart, couldn't say that when we're talking budgets and public money and asking people to put their hands in the pocket, that I could justifiably keep spending or more, that and more every year to deliver a service that was, looking at this budget, you're bringing in less income. So we needed to protect it. It needs to be in Newquay. It's a really useful service. I actually think that we will uncover unfound synergies and unfound opportunities within the two services being co-located than we would have ever thought of. So I just wanted to make those points. I think they're really important, and it's really important that we have Visit Newquay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, lovely. Thank you, Jo. Yes, thank you for everything that you do and for your report. And Amy, we've done your event report, so thank you for that as well.
Sorry, we have, but there was one bit tagged onto Amy, so we might have to come back into her.
Okay.
That's all right. But you've got CCTV next.
Yeah. So we've done CCTV manager's report. We'll do Newquay bid, because that's just for noting, unless anyone has a question, although we do have something that we do want to raise out of the bid manager's report anyway. So has everyone read the bid manager's report? Obviously, we've already talked about the zombie crawl, big success. For your diaries, the Lantern Parade is happening on Friday, the 21st of November. It's happening down at the Boating Lake Trans Gardens. It's starting off in the Heron Tennis Centre car park, and we will be parading the schools around the Boating Lake. Last year was the first year that we did it down at the Trans Gardens, and we expected it to be a couple of hundred people, and 2,000 people turned up, or around that number. So it was a significantly larger event than we had planned for, but it was a good problem to have, because it was a very lovely community event, and all of the schools were very patient with the fact that there were so many people there. All of the people that attended were very patient with the fact that there were so many schools there, and it was actually a really wonderful community Christmassy event. So if you are around on Friday, please attend. If you want to come and help, that would be even better, because we are working with the Blister Lions, Blister Lions, and they are doing a lot of the stewarding and helping just with flow of people. But to have any other town councillors there helping would be wonderful. On the 21st, Friday the 21st, it is happening between 5 and 8 p.m. I will check that. But that is what I think. I will be there because I am helping to organise it. So I definitely have all of that information stored in my brain. Amy, do you want to just come in with what you wanted to raise out of the bid manager's report before we go to back to Amy's events?
Yeah, it was just a query was raised about the Newquay Food Festival. One of the shops in town did say that they thought that it impacted their business.
Okay.
Everybody else gave really good feedback. We discussed it again at the working party, and everybody there was in favour for it, but we just need to just ask them because they have asked for, I think it's the 9th to the 11th of July or 9th to the 12th. So they just need to know if they can go ahead with that event.
And if we support it?
Yes.
Councillor Creek, you were at the events working party. Anything you want to come in with before we put that to the committee?
I thought it was a great event. Delivered huge footfall into the town centre. Well delivered, well executed. We tried some stuff with bars, which I think worked really well. Didn't really see any antisocial behaviour. The feedback from the rest of the business was very positive. I'm sorry that we couldn't make that true for every single business, but I guess, we only do our best, right? And I think we should see it again next year. Okay. I think that was the overwhelming feeling in the room. Yeah. I know Councillor Williamson was there as well.
Councillor Williamson.
It's not. I think two things, one small, one bigger. One is we need to make sure that they have a better process to empty their bins.
Okay.
Because it was fine in the beginning of the day and it got worse as the days progressed.
Okay.
And obviously we have seagulls, so, that's not good. And I think they were very fortunate with the weather. It was a brilliant weekend. So what I'd want to do is make sure that they had mitigation
if it's not
in place, just in case they're not as fortunate next time. So that was two things. But I have the other bigger thing is, and I know there are thoughts in place, so I don't know what you can share about them at the moment, but ways to actually make sure that the whole of the Killicourt community is included in the food festival,
not cut off,
and not the barrier, the metal framed barrier thing along the pathway was very visible. You're either in or you're out, and it felt to me a little bit like the event was a bit exclusive, and like could you just walk in or could you not, and so I think ways, if you can think, I don't know what you can share, but to kind of bring in all the shops down the road and the cafe at the bottom into that bigger piece. Maybe?
Yeah, they are really keen to have everybody involved. I think that was their plan last year, but because of the TENS and everything, they had to put the barriers up. And their drinking licence, you have to have it fenced in, and I think they did propose two things, but as it was a new event, the rules were a bit stricter just to make sure that it was all allowed, but now we've seen how they work, it may be a good discussion to have, and they are really willing to come in and speak as well, so they're more than happy to come and speak to everybody.
Great.
Do you mind if I ask about the date? It was like July 9th till 12th, was it?
What was the date?
Off the top of my head, I think it's like
Yeah.
the 9th to the 11th.
Does it?
Weekend is the Thursday to the Sunday of July.
Is it that specific weekend that they've asked for? Only because I was thinking, for us personally, on the cafe, sorry, is that okay to speak as a business owner as well, or not?
It would
No?
I'd class that as a conflict of interest. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
Pecuniary interest, sorry.
yes, okay, I understand. Only because the Falmouth Food Festival that they do in their own town is in like April or something. And obviously in July we already have tourists coming and this kind of thing. And I was wondering whether it might be better to have it at a quieter time for us, for Newquay, to encourage people to come and use it in that way.
So again, this was raised. They have one in Falmouth and they also have one in Penzance, I think September time. So that is why it has to be in that period of time. Yeah.
Councillor Creek.
Just very quickly on the barrier thing, I think if we were looking to do anything different, and that was a real trial last year, and that took a lot of effort to get that through certain members, because that has to be fenced in. So that was a real good compromise. But I would suggest that Amy, I'm sure she already is, working with our planning officer to understand what the licensing restrictions are around that, and whether there's any leeway or not. But we tried to keep it as open as possible whilst sticking to the rules on the alcohol thing. Yeah, but I think it's worth being done.
Councillor Jacobs, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I guess is it too late to go back on recommendation of this committee to say, is there any flexibility on the dates at all, or is it?
There's not.
I think you have reviewed several times. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Lovely. Okay. Thank you for that. So that's the bid manager's report done. And now we're going to jump back into the event manager's bit.
Just recommend.
Oh, yes, sorry. Yes, we are. I think following those discussions and the fact that you clarified about dates and all that we are happy to proceed. I'll propose, can I have a seconder? Councillor Taylor. All those in favour? Lovely. Thank you. So that's that one. And then remind me again what we're coming back to.
Just a proposal to go back into events, bring it back.
I'm going to propose that we're going to go back into events. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Williams. All those in favour? Happy days.
Thank you. It's the Killer Court banner design.
Oh yes.
Got
oh yes, 11A. I was coming to that one. I'm still on track with me numbers.
Yes.
Yes, Louise.
Sorry. Yes, Killer Court banner design. So you've got some pictures in your pack. So the idea is at the central column of the Killer Court, you have two banners simultaneously, side by side. The cost is £4.50 for the two banners. That's the banner and the installation. It's mainly born from common feedback that we get that although we have the totem pole with a list of all the businesses, sometimes people don't realise it is an event space as well, and they don't always know it's not necessarily visible for tourists. So it would just catch the eye, and with the view that in the future they could be changed up, we could change them slightly, they could be event based, and it is coming out of the events budget.
I like them. I think it's a good idea. I'd like to propose them, and I'm also thinking about time. So if anybody does have any questions, can we keep it brief? Great. Councillor Creek, you were first with your hand up.
I love the design. Can we have more than two? I think they look really good. And can we, just on the first one, just check the spelling on local? Other than that, love it.
There was a few mistakes we noticed, I think, but we went back to
Sort them out. Lovely. Councillor Cat, can't remember your surname, sorry.
That's all right, it's Norman. But
Norman. Councillor Norman.
Thank you. I think it's a fantastic idea, definitely necessary for that area. Would it be possible to get another design option?
I think these are the two design options for now.
Okay,
in the future, it can be that, they do change up. But
right.
I think these two are for now, and just to see how they weather as well, to be honest.
Okay.
Before we go wild.
Okay.
See how they last as well.
Nice. Cool. Councillor Jacobs.
If there were some small tweaks, it would be great to have they'll be quite high up, so the QR code's not quite, but the shop local support small business, it would just be great if that was a little bit bigger. It feels like it's very lost in the wording at the moment. Just to remind people that's what Killer Court is about. It is about kind of supporting our local businesses. And yeah, I was going to suggest a QR code if you wanted to book this space, but it depends how low down we go and is it in people's eyesight, because if it is, then it would be great for us, a little, particularly on that one, just one interested in booking or something just really small.
I'll see how high they're going.
Excellent. Do we need to propose these and vote? I'd like to propose that we go ahead with these. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Williamson. All those in favour? Woo. Lovely. Is that okay, Louise? Yes. Great. So, Councillor Hubbocks has proposed a couple with your councillor. She isn't here, unfortunately. She has sent her apologies. So we might bump that one. Shall we bump that one to January? I can also talk to it. It's a conversation we've been having for quite a while, on and off, with with all of the town councillors, and it's really a way of engaging with our community. I was quite keen to open up the chamber on a Saturday morning, have coffee and croissants and invite people in to demystify this building. Councillor Hubbard and I think Councillor Taylor had also said, let's go to the people, so let's have some cover with your councillors at events or on a Saturday morning in a chosen cafe where people can come and have a really informal meet with us, find out that we are human beings and we are nice and we want to hear from people. So that was kind of the premise. So I think we will bump it to the next meeting so that Councillor Hubbard can lead on it, but that was what it was. And I think as a kind of thing that we do for 2026, I think it would be a really positive way of engaging in a different way with our community. Councillor Williamson.
No, I'll
Hold it for Abby, lovely. Okay, Newquay Town team. We haven't got a representative from Newquay Town team.
No, nor an update.
So we do need to appoint a town team representative from this committee. Unfortunately, Shirley isn't here to tell us what the commitment for that would be. I think she has shared it before, but I can't remember. Louise, do you have any information?
It's mainly attending their meetings and then bringing back and feeding back anything that we need to know or supporting anything as a town council.
Do the town team still have budget?
No, we haven't got
Okay,
any.
so, but they are still an active group and are still doing positive things for the town and potentially getting more funding in the future. Okay. Okay, it's got something to do. Oh, okay. Okay. Anybody want to find out a little bit more about working with the town team and some of the stuff that they've done really successfully in the past and the potential of what they could do in the future?
This was a request from Shirley so that she had somebody ready.
That she had somebody ready for when they're good to go. So at the moment, there's not a huge commitment, but there might be a once a month meeting commitment after that. No. Could we bump this to future meetings, and then if town team do come in and say, actually, we've got a big chunk of change and we really want to do some exciting stuff, then we can see if there's somebody who might be able to take up the position then. Is that okay? Possibly.
Not necessarily, can be opened up, but
yeah, thanks. I will review that at the next meeting. Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Are the meetings during the day or in the evening? Because I've joined one team that meets during the day and that's already eating into my work day, which makes it harder to...
it's daytime.
It's daytime, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we get notification of a meeting, I can always send it out via email and a volunteer it might appear.
Oh yeah, I mean, if we could do a rolling one, if it's convenient for someone to jump onto, but it is challenging when we work. Okay, the Sea Cadets sponsorship. The Sea Cadets have been in touch and they want to, they've asked for, is it £400? £400 to look to get some new t-shirts and some hoodies. This would be coming out of the unspent grants budget. As there is money available, would we be happy to support this? Any questions? Any thoughts? Councillor Jacobs.
Given that we've got 5,000 from youth, I would say, is it better to come from the youth budget if it was Sea Cadets, because I believe they're...
As they are the youth.
Youth organisation.
Anne. Okay, that's fine. Would that be the same if it was coming out of the youth budget? So it's still all the same process? Okay, so it doesn't really matter which one it comes out of if they, in terms of them having to go through that process. I'm happy to support, I'm happy to propose with the caveat that they go through, that they fill in the right forms and give us all the information that we need with receipts and whatnot. Frances, do you have a question?
Yeah, I did. When I was reading the request, they didn't say how many would be covered? So how many T-shirts and hoodies do they want?
Sure, that would have to come through the grant. If they're going to fill in the grants form, then they'll have to...
Because if it's like 50, then great. If it's 5...
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's all... we have to think about the access. And also then, if it is, could we... And they are successful with their grants, could we use it with photographs and others as a bit of a springboard?
That's what they wanted, yeah.
To say, look, they've got it, so why don't you guys do it?
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Winston. Councillor Jacobs.
It was just what Anne said about if we're going to follow a formal, are we saying that we need to follow a formal application process because we don't have a round that's open? Because I presume, or are we agreeing this in advance of them giving the information? Just to sort of, if we're setting a precedent that any community group can send us an email and we decide at committee, one, are we able to do that within our policy? And then two, well, that's the first question actually, are we able to answer that? And then second, if we say yes to this tonight, are we then setting a precedent that any community group can email in and we can use our grants pot for funding next week? We might have nuclear lines or the week after this.
So if you follow the policy, the deadlines are closed. So there is no ability at the current time to give any grant funding money out. I am hopeful that we can get some advice and that we can reopen it. It's under the limit where it would come to committee anyway, so it's under £1,000, so that could be supported. So I suppose the best way forward in terms of policy would be to say we're looking at reopening. If we can reopen, then we will put this through, and then as I've already said, they're supportive as long as they fill in relevant information, because it should always be fair and transparent each funding application.
Yeah, in principle, sounds great.
Okay, so in terms of reopening the grant process, you said you're taking advice on that.
I need to speak to Andy.
Okay, so you need to speak to Andy. Do we need to do anything with that? Or is that just, that's the conversation that you're having and we will wait for the result of that conversation?
I think we need to have that conversation.
Yeah.
What you could do is give delegated authority if it is allowed to proceed on the basis of a few people signing that off, because you would be supportive of another
opening. Okay. So putting it to the committee, would we be happy to reopen the grants pot if it's something we can do? Yeah, I'll propose that. Councillor Jacobs seconded it. All those in favour? So we're happy for that conversation to happen. And then if that is approved and we can have the funds available, we're happy. I would be happy for Anne and myself and another member to have delegated authority to approve this once they have gone through the grant process. Who would like to be the third person there to approve that? All you need to do is answer an email.
Do you have a deputy?
Do you want a deputy chair? It can be. I think it can be anybody, can't it? The delegated authority can go to anybody. It doesn't have to be. So yeah, Jessie, are you happy with that? Do I need to propose that? I will propose that the delegated authority comes to myself, deputy chair, and Anne. I will propose it. Seconder, Councillor Williamson. Oh, it's getting late. All those in favour? Great. Okay. Item 15 is the St Coast Cap letter. So, are you all aware of the Saints Coast Cap? Anyone not aware of what the Saints Coast Cap is? You don't know. Okay. So Cornwall Council have separated up Cornwall into 12 different areas, and they are called community area partnerships, and they make up towns and villages across the area, across Cornwall, across the Duchy, where we all come together and we meet regularly to look at the different challenges that we're facing in our local community and see how we can work together to overcome some of those challenges. So we have a dedicated community liaison officer, a CLO from Cornwall Council, who chair the meeting, who support the meetings. We have a chair and a vice chair that are made up of members of the local town and parish councils. And at the beginning of the year, we have kind of come together as a CAP, and we've had a look at all the different things that are high on our agenda for things that we want to try and tackle. And things on our, we are the Saints Coast CAP. I can't quite remember the geographical area that we cover. Councillor Creek.
St Agnes, Perranporth, Newquay, St Column Major, St Morgan, St Wen, and St something else.
Yes, all of those places. And so some of the things on our agenda are transport links. I've managed to push youth in there, so we now have a youth working group, amongst lots of other things. So at our last CAP meeting, it was proposed that we would write to the government, as you can see from the letter, it is addressed to the Right Honourable David Lammy, to talk about the good growth funding, the local growth funding that we've got through the shared prosperity, and the benefit that it's had for our CAP area, and please can we have some more, basically. That conversation was very lively because some people were very in support of writing the letter and some people were not, but the letter has been written. So the ask this evening is whether we want to write our own letter of support in this and say SPF has benefited Newquay in lots of different ways, including Experience Newquay, that was SPF money, and it's done lots of wonderful things for the town, and we would encourage you in supporting that and giving us some more. Any questions or thoughts or feelings on that? Councillor Creek.
I have lots of feelings. I'm not sure that I want to share any,
okay.
particularly
Great.
around aerospace.
Okay, that's fine. So yes, I think the ask, Louise, if I'm right, was it's happening anyway, but do we want to add our name to it? Do we want to write a letter from Newquay Town Council supporting the letter and saying, yes, we agree with all of this and hello, and please give us some more funding to continue the wonderful work that we've done? That's correct. Any thoughts on that? Any comments? Councillor Taylor.
Is there ever a reason to not write a letter to get more funding?
I will not speak for fellow members of the CAP as to why they didn't want to, because they are not here. But there was some reasons, but I feel that we should be going to our Right Honourable David Lammy. Councillor Williamson.
Yeah, we could even invite the Right Honourable to visit some of those locations, maybe in the letter. I think that would be nice, instead of just royal visits all the time. However, yes, I think we should, because obviously since an event that took place in 2016, Cornwall has suffered significantly through lack of funding, and we are one of the lowest economic areas in the country and across Europe. So yes, we need as much funding coming into Newquay and beyond. I do think that there needs to be appropriate due diligence put into it, though, and that any funding processes and allocation goes to appropriate places and people.
Yes, agreed. Councillor Martin.
What are the constrictions or what are the conditions for accepting further funding from himself? And does that money come to us? No, it won't come to us.
Come to the council.
How do we, for want of a better expression, really, how do we control it? How do we manage it? How do we?
So it's a very good question, Councillor Martin. So the pot that we would be asking for would go to Cornwall Council, and then
we apply to Cornwall Council?
It depends on how they decide to just distribute those funds and what departments it goes to and for what activity.
May I continue?
Yes, please.
My concern about that is, and perhaps you can advise,
As a Cornwall councillor.
About the relationship, I think, between different bodies, the Saints Coast Community Area Partnership, and us, and Cornwall Council, and, okay, just bluntly, because I'm getting tired now, bluntly, is money going to be drawn down, go to Cornwall Council, and be used for some, reform gala or something, I'm sorry to mention that, but, because I'm new to this, I haven't seen this before, and I'm all for getting as much money from whatever government we can possibly get most of the time. But if there are restrictions on how it's spent, then how can we bypass those, or how can we?
As our only Cornwall Council representative in the room, Councillor Craig, I'd like to invite you in to possibly answer some of Councillor Martin's questions.
I really didn't want to get into this. So,
bearing in mind it is,
yeah,
we have 15 minutes left.
I'll give you my personal view, and I'm going to preface this by saying I'm not suggesting that there's been any wrongdoing at any point of time. That said, I have questions around transparency on how this SPS fund was previously delivered. I think that there are people even in this room that might have applied for SPF and didn't get it and weren't given satisfactory reason as to why they didn't over other projects that were given funding that have failed to deliver, I believe, on the objectives that they set out for that particular fund at Cornwall Council. That said, I agree with you, Councillor Martin, that money from government for us is good, particularly being one of the poorest areas of Northern Europe. I'm reluctant to say much more, other than, with these pots of money, and they tend to be quite large pots of money, you do worry about how much that money gets out into grassroots organisations and community benefit over the additional employment of staff and bits and pieces in the unitary authority who would ultimately control it. And of course, these things are always open to political politics, essentially, in that you'll end up with a politician deciding who the money goes to and where it goes to. So, based on a set of criteria that only they know. Does that help to answer your question?
No, that's great. Thank you. It does add some context to the question around whether we want to support the letter as the town council, as the community and tourism. I don't know if this will get bumped to full council or not, which just seems. So whether we want to support the letter.
Just very quickly, I'd support the letter, and I'd support putting Experience in Newquay in there for the most part, because I think there's been some really good work that we've done on Experience Newquay. I'm trying to think of other SPF funds that Newquay has benefited from. I'm struggling, other than a number of pots of money that went up to the aerospace industry that I'm not sure what happened to.
Okay, so I will propose that as the tourism, community and tourism committee, we are happy to support the letter. I propose that. Anyone who wants to second it? All those in support of writing the letter, supporting the letter?
You can't. I mean, sorry, I wasn't in for the discussions, so I don't feel I can say too much. But I do think what Drew was saying about the actual type of funding that we're getting, and I would prefer our own letter to go to the Deputy Prime Minister from a local government perspective, from a sort of town and parish, and there's been lots of talk about reform at that level and what devolution looks like, and decisions that are made for places being made by Cornwall councillors who are can be quite distant if we don't have representatives on their cabinet and other things. So for that reason, I wouldn't feel like I can support this current letter, I would prefer our own letter stating the case for why funding should actually come closer to communities, in line with some of what they're saying around kind of reform of kind of local parish and I can't remember what the wording is at the moment that they're banding around, but that would be mine. So I wouldn't support this, but I would support our own letter.
Sorry, could I ask just another question? The SPF, does it always have to go to the unitary authority, or it does? Does it? That's the mechanism. Okay.
So I think what you're saying, Councillor James, is because this is money coming to our CAP area that we're very much a part of. And I'm not saying that we could write our own letter anyway at the time crisis conversation. That's what I thought was the first conversation. But I think we had a most.
Okay, I think everyone would agree, but maybe we could follow it up with a separate letter or more focused activity, because it is a concern, but there are processes and we've got to work with those, or yeah.
And that we monitor it very carefully. You know, if there is money coming down, then not only do we have some of it, but we.
Councillor Martin, I invite you to come to CAP. Come and sit on CAP. Then you can see where the money is, and you can see where the working groups are, and it's a thrilling experience.
I'll think about it.
Lovely. Okay, so number 16 on the agenda is correspondence. Louise, do we have any? No. Okay. Oh, sorry.
No, sorry. I'm shaking my head. We do, but it's just for noting in regard to the night bus.
Oh, yeah, that's the next one. So that is
the only
Devon
correspondence.
Cornwall Police night bus. It's just a letter telling them what a success it's been, and they're really pleased with it, and that is that. Any questions?
So it seemed to be alluding in the letter that they were looking for funding in the future from us.
Not that we're aware of at the moment.
Yeah, but it did seem to allude to it, didn't it? Yeah.
Not that we know of right now. Can't say that might not come.
Okay, number 17 is any other business for information only from anyone. I've already shared mine with the Lansing Parade.
We talked about the Sea Cadets earlier. Sea Cadets coming into the council chambers on Thursday night at 6:30. I encourage you all to join us and come and talk to the children about democracy.
On Thursday?
Thursday evening, 6:30, this week, in this chamber. Yeah.
I have got another one that I've just remembered. So, the Creative Kerno Cornwall Council consultation that's happening about shaping Cornwall in the next decade. There's a consultation that is happening at UKWY also on Thursday, but it runs from the afternoon into the evening. It's a drop-in. Creative Kerno, Cornwall Council are doing a consultation about shaping the future of Cornwall, asking for a lot of input from the Newquay community. Historically, attendance at these kind of events is really poor. So if you have any means of telling people about these events, then please share them with friends, on your social media, because it would be great to really show that Newquay's community actually does care about shaping the future of Cornwall, and we do have a voice, and this is how we can use it. So if you are available to pop in to that, as I said, it is a drop-in, you don't have to be there for the whole time, then that would be super. So that's WI on Thursday between 4 and 7, I think. There is information on Newquay Town Council's Facebook page all about that event, so you can find the information there. Lovely. We will move into exempt business. No. Sorry.
I was just going to add, and I wasn't here at the last meeting, so maybe this was covered then, apologies if so. I think the train ticket machine gods listened.
We do have one now.
Yes. It is there. It is there. Can you believe we manifested that machine from the last meeting? I walked past, I was like, oh my God, it worked. So thank you for all of your train ticket machine energy. And the fact that we now have one.
Hurrah. Well done, everyone. Lovely, thank you. Anybody else? Any other business? Lovely. Okay, we will move into exempt business. Thank you all, if anybody is watching.